Hello, friends. Greetings and peace to you. I hope you are well and in good health, of a sober mind, and in spiritual equilibrium. I find myself compelled to comment on current events, given the dramatic and very public nature of the budding trade war between China and these United States, to give, hopefully, in any way I can, some reassurance to anyone, even if it is only a small number of people who see this video. Whatever your individual feelings might be on the current president or on the administration surrounding him, I hope that you can see how essential it is that China be checked. If it is not checked now, it never will be. China, of course, not only a proverbial, but in its historic iconography, a literal dragon, needs to be put in its place beneath the heel. And we have known China has been a threat for a long, long time. Turns out Nancy Pelosi agrees, of all people. Who would have thought? Glory to God.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status for several reasons that I'd like to go into now. I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business community is asking each and every one of us to endorse today. Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%, whereas the average Chinese MFN tariff on U.S. goods going into China is 35%. Is that reciprocal? On exports, China only allows certain industries into China, of U.S. Industries into China, and therefore only 2% of U.S. exports are allowed into China. On the other hand, the U.S. allows China to flood our markets with a third of their exports, and that'll probably go over 40%. And it's limitless because we have not placed any restriction. In terms of jobs, this is the biggest and cruelest hoax of all. Not only do we not have market access, not only do they have prohibitive tariffs, not only are our exports not let in very specifically, but China benefits with at least 10 million jobs from U.S.-China. Colleagues on the other side of this issue will say the trade with China, exports to China have increased 3 times in the last 10 years. They have. But they fail to mention that imports from China have increased 11 times, thereby leading to this huge trade deficit. The other issue, in addition, if intellectual property is a $2 billion, $3 billion loss, technology transfer is in the hundreds of billions of dollars. If you want to sell to China, your products into China, the Chinese insist that you open a factory there. They misappropriate your technology, open factories of their own, and then say to you, now we want to see your plan for export. That's as simply as I can say it briefly. But the fact is, this isn't about products made in America. The Chinese want American products that are made in China. And the most serious of these transfers of technology are in the airline industry, where Boeing tail sections of the Boeing 737s were mostly made in Wichita, Kansas. Now they are made in Shen province, where workers make $50 a month. And they had the transfer of the technology and the transfer of the jobs has taken place. General Motors, Ford, they're all fighting to get in to build factories there so they can make parts there. They want MFN so they can get those parts back into the United States. So we are exporting not low-tech jobs and textile jobs. We're exporting our technology. Now, if you take a country the size of China with the very cheap, and in some instances, slave labor, the lack of market access, the rip-off of our intellectual property, the transfer of technology, a country that is not willing to play by the rules in any respect in this trade relationship, you have a serious threat not only to our relationship, but to the industrialized world. And if there's one message that I want our colleagues to understand today and our constituents is that on this day, your member of Congress could have drawn the line to say to the President of the United States, do something about this U.S.-China trade relationship that is a job loser for the United States. And this brings us to the point that others have said, well, we can't isolate China. Do you think for 1 minute that with 10 million jobs at least and $35 billion and be over $40 billion this year in a trade surplus, all those billions of dollars in surplus, that the Chinese are going to walk away? Where are they going to take 35 to 40% of their exports? Who's going to buy them? This is what sustains the regime. The funding and the jobs. They can't have those people out of work. They have to be at work exporting to the United States.
When I worked as a journalist from 2012 to 2014, the media outfit I worked for was one of the first to report on the Chinese Communist Party's rounding up of hundreds of thousands of its own citizens, practitioners of Falun Gong and ancient Chinese spirituality, and were harvesting their organs while they were still alive so they could be sold on the black market. Our Lady of Fatima warned us about the dangers of communism and the grave disasters that would follow in its place, from manipulating their currency and internal genocides to harvesting organs of living people and stealing huge amounts of intellectual property from American companies and then flooding our markets with cheaper knockoff goods. The Chinese government must be opposed vigorously and with overwhelming economic force. And we, finally, have an administration who is willing to take the hits up front to put the snake in its place. Friends, it's time to slay dragons. So, buckle in, buck up, hang tough. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but God is with us to prosper us and save the world from a globalist socialist hellscape. Stay in prayer, love God with all your soul, and see you on the other side of this tumult. God bless you. God love you. God's peace to you. I encourage you to spend some time and contemplate the holy face of Christ.